What part attracted you most from this position at that time?
The challenge, enormous opportunities behind it.
What was the challenge and what was the opportunity that you could foresee?
The challenge was it was a difficult situation. It was
How difficult?
One of the few situations where BMW in China actually the sales went south. So they decreased, but the brand, the whole setup had enormous opportunities. The company had just come here with a local joint venture, so they were serious about it to do something here, but somehow it got stalled or got stuck. So to unravel this was the challenge, but the opportunities were great, and I think this was the point, finding these opportunities and then realize them.
大家好，欢迎收看杨澜访谈录。从2002年到2012年，中国的汽车市场增长迅猛，被称为是中国汽车的黄金10年。这10年当中，无论是本土品牌还是国际品牌，可以说是逐鹿中原，硝烟四起。而这当中就有若干人物特别被人们津津乐道，其中之一就是宝马汽车大中华区的总裁兼首席执行官史登科博士。他是一位德国人，却有着一个非常地道的中国名字。在他任职的100个月之内，宝马汽车在中国的销量增长了20倍，被人们称为是行业的一个奇迹。在他即将离任的时候，业内呢也纷纷用再见史登科向他致敬，可见他的影响已经超越了一个简单的品牌经理人。
2013年2月，宝马集团大中华区总裁兼首席执行官史登科将要离开宝马，宣布退休。此时恰恰是他在宝马履职的第100个月。8年的时间里，史登科留给宝马中国的是20倍的业绩增长。媒体纷纷以再见史登科来表达对这样一个传奇人物的怀念。那么这位精通中文、深谙中国经营之道的史登科，他的身上究竟有哪些特别的故事呢？
How did you get this Chinese name, 史登科? Because it really has some historical meanings in the Chinese language.
First, when I came to China, naturally my Chinese was very poor. It was much poorer than it is today. So first you are given a name by the institute, the Waiban, they're giving you a name, and in my case it was Shidake or Sitake, so it sounded a bit strange. It doesn't sound Chinese at all.
No.
So then I met some friends at the Peking University, and he was very knowledgeable. And we sat together and said, hey, we need to find yourself a Chinese name. And then we first came up with the Shi, and I thought this first of all was quite nice because I'm very interested in history. So Li Shi, the Shi, it also happens to be a surname. And then we thought about how we can find something that's phonetically close to my real English name or my home name, my born name, but still Chinese. And then he came up with this Dunke. So it sounds a little bit, Dunke sounds a little bit like Stark, but it has a certain meaning. So then we choose that name. So he was very instrumental in that and got stuck since then. So I'm using that name since
It's
then.
a quite a prosperous name. Yeah, Dunke, 五子登科, right?
Yeah.
Really get being renowned or
yeah. At that time
like
I didn't really know the whole thing behind it, but I gradually came to know more about it.
But that was in mid-80s, right?
That was in 1980, in fact.
史登科上世纪50年代出生于德国明斯特，80年代来到中国北京大学就读于历史系。年轻的时候，史登科不仅骑着自行车转遍了北京城，还坐着当年的绿皮火车游历了中国许多城市。当年的他或许未曾想到，机缘巧合的20年后，他将在这片土地上开创自己以及宝马中国的一段新的旅程。
But then, how did a man whose major was history jump into the automobile industry?
Well, I think so many things in life just happen by chance. I mean, when I studied history, I never had the idea that one day I would end up in China or be in a corporation or in BMW for that matter. So you do things at the time where you're interested in, especially when you're young, you don't care too much about future planning.
It was about adventure.
I thought, well, I would like to come to China, learn a little bit of the language, came here, and then later I went back and thought maybe I should stay in research. Become a scholar, and then I thought it's probably not the right thing to do, only to watch what other people are doing. So I went into business, and then later on I came to BMW. But what I think is helpful is that the real reason to study history is probably to know about people, because history is nothing, to study history is nothing about else than studying people, how people interact, the psychology between things, why things fail, why are they successful, why sometimes there's progress, sometimes they go back. So it helps you at the end of the day. It still helps you quite a big deal to understand people.
I happened to visit your museum in Munich a few years back. That was a part of history too. I guess instead of just studying history, you were trying to make some history in this brand's performance in China. Did you expect to do something big when you joined the company in 2004?
No, I don't think you set out with the idea of making history. I think this would be much too big a notion. You start somewhere and you try to improve things, to make an impact, to really develop what your job is.
2012年，宝马在华的销量达到了30万辆，而2004年史登科上任之初，当时宝马在华销量低迷，仅有1.5万辆左右。2004年9月，史登科被宝马从扬州亚星奔驰有限公司 CEO 的位置挖角，就任宝马大中华区总裁兼首席执行官。
What part attracted you most from this position at that time?
The challenge. Enormous opportunities behind it.
What was the challenge and what was the opportunity that you could foresee?
The challenge was it was a difficult situation. It was
How difficult?
One of the few situations where BMW in China actually the sales went south. So they decreased. But the brand, the whole setup had enormous opportunities. The company had just come here with a local joint venture. So they were serious about it to do something here, but somehow it got stalled or got stuck. So to unravel this was the challenge, but the opportunities were great, and I think this was the point, finding these opportunities and then realize them. When I came in, sales were about 15,000. That was in 2004, and the situation wasn't very good. People didn't know why it had become so difficult. At that time, you can't say in 8 years we do 300,000. That would be too ridiculous, nobody would follow you. However, what we try to do is to set 2-3 year targets, relatively ambitious targets, and once you do the first 2-3 successful steps, then it's easier to build on this success and push the objectives further. So you don't have this clear idea, exact numbers, but you want to improve it, and you want to improve it quickly. Speed in a market like China is very important, but surely you don't have this very fixed figure or number in your head.
2005年，同类在华高端车某品牌宣布涨价。史登科却在此时宣布，国产宝马3系和5系价格下调5到10万元。当时宝马在中国的业务刚刚起步，而降价行动在宝马全球范围绝无仅有。史登科的宝马中国市场攻略走出了令人惊讶的一步。
Isn't cutting price a taboo for a high-end brand as BMW?
It was a taboo at that time. Until then, the situation was that the locally produced products didn't move very well. People didn't really quite know at that time why we got stuck. So we sat down and we discussed it a lot. We had a lot of brainstorming. We found out the market just didn't accept the old prices, the old official prices. So what we did in effect was using the prices the market had given the products already and make them official. And so what we call the transaction prices, and made them official prices. And I needed to have something like a big bang to make everybody aware BMW is serious about competing. It is seriously open its customer base. It's coming out of a certain confined corner and is trying to win more customers. And that's then was this big bang, and it worked very well. And at that time there was a lot of discussion also with the friends from the media. They said, do you do this all the time? I said, no, one time and one time only. And we did it only once.
What was the response from inside and outside? Did you have a united line behind you or before you? No.
Well, the inside took a little bit of discussion and intensive brainstorming and persuasion. Then we came to the point we said this is the only way we need to do in order to increase sales. In the external response, there were some critical voices, there were some very big headlines, outrageous headlines, but at the end of the day the effect was very positive. The feedback, I would say, was over 90% very positive.
But that was from the customers.
Customers.
How about competitors? They would say, oh, this guy jumps into this water and stir things up.
Yeah, you see, if you want to compete, you need to stir things up. But you need to stand your ground, and it was very clear for us this would be one-time action. It was for 2 products only. You know, if you want to move, you move, and if somebody feels you're stirring up something, it's not a bad
thing. But would you suggest to adopt the same strategy in today's market?
No.
no more?
No, you can't.
Why?
You can't reproduce or copy things that may be right at one point of time, may be wrong the next day. So you always need to do things in according with the situation. So nowadays everything is much more established. The competition more established. The market is much more mature. So you wouldn't do things like that.
What if today your competitor jumps in and try to reduce their price? What would your response to
Not
be?
much I can comment on this, but I can say in last year, about a year ago, 11 months ago to be exact, somebody tried it and it failed miserably. So it just shows you can't repeat things and get the same result.
Why? Because the market is different now?
The market is more mature, customers are more discerning, and you see nowadays you need to compete more on the marketing side, on the brand side, because the market is more mature. And then if you do drastic things like that in a more mature market, people just wait for the next price reduction.